Imagine hitting the game-winning shot in the NBA Finals.
Oh, yeah, the ultimate dream, right?
Exactly. The buzzer sounds, the confetti falls from the ceiling, the crowd is just absolutely deafening.
Like total chaos.
And you could look at that player, screaming in triumph, and you think you're seeing the exact moment someone became a winner.
But you aren't.
Right. You're actually looking at a ghost.
Hmm.
You're looking at a result that was decided at like 4:30 a.m. in an empty, freezing gym 3 years ago.
Yeah, completely in the dark.
You are witnessing the very end of a timeline. And that the illusion of the scoreboard is exactly what we're tearing down today in this deep dive.
It really is the ultimate cognitive trap, isn't it?
Oh, totally. I mean, welcome to the deep dive, everyone. Today we are unpacking a massive, incredibly detailed document titled Winning Habits.
And it is just packed.
It is. It's packed with philosophies from absolute legends. People like John Wooden, Kobe Bryant, Michael Jordan, Mike Krzyzewski, Tim Tebow.
Heavy hitters.
Right. And our mission today is to completely dismantle the way you, the listener, think about ambition.
Because we want to prove that winning is not the starting point.
Not at all.
We meet winning at the absolute end of the journey. We see the trophy being hoisted, the applause, that massive public breakthrough.
Yeah, this glamorous part.
Exactly. And because we only see that final, highly visible result, we get emotionally attached to the outcome.
We just fall in love with the appearance of excellence.
Right. But we completely ignore, and honestly, we often actively resist the hidden, gritty structure that actually produces it.
Okay, let's unpack this for a second, because I was really struggling with this idea of the delay of winning when reading the source material.
It's a hard concept to grasp at first.
It is. But then it made me think of looking up at the night sky.
Oh, the star analogy. I love this.
Right, like you see a star shining brilliantly up there, but you aren't actually seeing what's happening right now.
No, you're looking at a photograph from the past.
Exactly.
Yeah.
By the time that starlight finally reaches your eyes, the massive chaotic energy, the fusion, the intense heat that created it, all of that happened thousands, maybe millions of years ago.
In the dark.
In the dark. Winning is exactly like that starlight. It's just a lagging indicator.
It is. And if we connect this to the bigger picture from the text, that delay completely flips how we need to understand a concept like pressure.
Oh man, pressure. We all hate it.
We do, because we have this culturally ingrained assumption that pressure creates failure.
Right, like the stakes get too high, the lights get too bright, and someone just chokes.
Yeah, we think the moment broke them. But the document argues that pressure is rarely a creative force. It doesn't magically invent a failure on the spot out of nowhere. Pressure is merely a revealing force.
A revealing force.
Right. It acts like a stress test on a bridge. It simply exposes the pattern, the structural integrity, or the cracks that were already there.
So for everyone listening, think about a time in your own life where you felt like you completely bombed under pressure.
We've all been there.
Oh, absolutely. Maybe it was a massive presentation at work, or a really crucial conversation with a partner, or a pivotal moment in a competition.
Right.
Was it really the pressure that caused the failure? Or did the pressure just act like a magnifying glass?
Exposing a crack in your foundation.
Exactly. A crack that you had quietly tolerated in private. I mean, you knew you didn't run that drill enough times.
You knew you skimmed the research.
Right. You accepted a B- effort when no one was looking, and the pressure just brought that B- into the light.
That is the incredibly uncomfortable truth of it. Long before a person wins or loses publicly, they are either building or weakening their internal foundation.
Yeah.
Habits are not just behaviors we do to pass the time. The text makes it clear they are literal votes for the kind of self we're becoming.
Wow, votes for the kind of self we are becoming.
Exactly. And this brings us right to the problem of impatience. Ambitious people want the transformation to feel dramatic.
Oh, I am completely guilty of this.
We all are. We want the outer life of a winner without having to do the quiet, deeply unglamorous construction of the inner life.
I want the foundation to look like a luxury penthouse while I'm still pouring the wet concrete,
Right. We want the resilience without the discomfort of actually building it.
But if the visible result, that scoreboard, is just a delayed reflection of our habits, then we have to figure out where the actual work begins.
And looking through the philosophy of John Wooden in the text, the starting point is totally counterintuitive.
Completely backwards to how we normally think.
Right, because you have to ignore the scoreboard, you have to fall in love with the process.
John Wooden is like the perfect architect for this.
Absolutely.
What's fascinating here is how Wooden managed to run a legendary basketball dynasty without ever being hypnotized by the concept of winning.
It's wild. His core philosophy was that success cannot be trusted if it is detached from the habits that produce it.
He just refused to treat success as a glamorous destination.
To him, success was strictly a byproduct of preparation. And if you obsess over the byproduct, you lose focus on the machinery making it.
But wait, isn't it just human nature to want the applause?
Of course it is.
Because if I am putting in grueling, invisible work every single day, my ego screams for some kind of visible payoff.
Naturally.
So how are we supposed to survive the sheer delay of the reward without losing our minds?
Well, that tension is exactly where most ambitious people derail.
Really?
Yeah. The text points out that the first critical mistake is letting your imagination of success outpace your daily discipline.
Oh, wow.
Process, by its very nature, hides its rewards at first. It demands a massive upfront investment before any evidence of progress appears.
So you're just putting in coins and getting nothing back for a long time.
Exactly. And that delay is the ultimate test of psychological maturity. Impatience ruins incredibly talented people simply because they want the work to flatter them too quickly.
Right, they demand visible proof on a Tuesday that the work they did on Monday made them an absolute genius.
And when they don't see it, they abandon perfectly good work.
They just quit.
Or they switch systems, they change diets, they pivot strategies, because rushed carelessness feels faster in the moment.
It feels like you're doing something.
Right. But process teaches patience not as a passive waiting game, but as disciplined accuracy. You are layering skill millimeter by millimeter.
And part of that disciplined accuracy brings us face to face with a massive hurdle, which is boredom.
Oh, the ego hates boredom.
Kobe Bryant had this incredibly stark warning in the source material about this. He basically said, if you want to be the best in the world, you cannot get bored with the basics. But let's be honest here. My brain craves novelty. I can stick to a new, exciting habit for about 3 days before my brain is begging for a distraction.
It's so common.
So why is repetition so agonizing for us?
This raises a really important point about our neurobiology that the deep dive sources touch on. The ego absolutely despises repetition because our brains are literally wired for adaptation.
Okay, how so?
Well, when you practice a fundamental skill initially, it takes intense cognitive load.
You have to think about every little movement.
Exactly. But eventually, the mind adapts. The neural pathways thicken. What was difficult becomes familiar.
Right.
And the second familiarity arrives, the ego gets restless. It stops producing dopamine for that task.
Yeah, so the reward chemical drops off.
Exactly. It wants a more advanced technique, a sector drill, a dramatic new challenge.
We want to graduate. We think we've, completed the fundamentals.
Right, we check the box. But excellence is not built from extraordinary, superhuman moments.
No.
It is built from ordinary moments treated with an unusual, almost irrational level of seriousness. It is the refusal to graduate from the fundamentals.
And Wooden used to say, quote, it's the little details that are vital.
Yes. It's handling a tiny detail carefully when carelessness would go completely unnoticed by everyone else in the room.
Doing that over and over again.
Right. And doing that aggregates into a totally different identity.
So the process actually protects you from your own ego in a way.
It really does. And it serves as a profound mechanism for emotional regulation.
How so?
Think about scoreboard living. When your identity is chained to volatile results, you are on a massive emotional pendulum.
Oh, totally. You win, you're on top of the world.
Right. If you get the promotion, your confidence spikes into arrogance. But if you lose the deal, your insecurity spirals into despair.
It sounds exhausting.
It is an incredibly fragile way to live because you are trying to emotionally conquer a future you cannot control.
And process fixes that.
Yes, process creates calm by narrowing your universe down to what you can control right this very second. The next repetition, the next correction.
So you aren't trying to win the championship on a random Thursday in October.
No, you're just trying to execute one single footwork drill flawlessly. You're escaping the scoreboard.
You measure your worth not by the grand result, but by asking, was the work honored today? Was my preparation truthful?
That is exactly how you make ambition usable instead of overwhelming.
But wait, if process just keeps you moving, what dictates the actual quality of that movement?
That is the next layer.
Because you can be mindlessly moving through a process, right? Showing up to the gym, going through the motions at your desk, and not actually getting anywhere.
Just burning time.
Right. A process needs a standard. And as we transition from Wooden's process to the mindsets of people like Kobe Bryant and Michael Jordan, we see that establishing a real standard comes with a severe cost.
It's not just a routine.
No. And here's where it gets really interesting. Think about this concept of the internal courtroom.
Oh, this is such a great visualization.
It's 4:30 a.m. Your alarm goes off. Instantly, your brain convenes a full Supreme Court hearing.
The gavel drops.
Right. The defense attorney, for your comfort, takes the stand and starts pleading its case. It says, you worked a 12-hour shift yesterday. You're stressed. It's raining.
Yeah.
1 day of rest won't matter.
We all do this every single day.
We constantly negotiate with our own weakness. But Kobe Bryant's approach was chillingly simple. He said, I'm not negotiating with myself. I signed the contract with myself. I'm doing it.
The end of negotiation. That is the defining line of a true standard.
It's not a suggestion.
No, a standard is not what you say you value when you are highly caffeinated and speaking at a conference.
Right, when everyone's watching and clapping.
A standard is the literal line beneath which you refuse to fall.
Yeah.
If your standard disappears when you are exhausted, it's not a standard, it's just a mood.
Wow.
If it disappears when the boss isn't in the office, it's not a standard, it's a performance.
I struggle with the burnout aspect of this. It's so easy to get fired up for a week, you know.
The motivation high.
Yeah, you watch a motivational video, you buy the new expensive running shoes, you declare to the world that you have a new standard.
That's intensity.
Right, intensity. But why does that intensity always seem to evaporate by week 3 while actual seriousness stays?
Because intensity is inherently unstable, and it runs on adrenaline.
It's a spike.
Exactly. You can ride the high of a new beginning for a week. It feels good. You feel morally superior. But real standards cost comfort, and they cost it every single day.
People don't like that part.
No, they don't. Many people want the identity of greatness. They want to be known as the disciplined person, but they completely resist the repeated forfeiture of ease.
You want the result without the sacrifice.
Exactly. So they just quietly lower the bar when the adrenaline wears off?
And it's not usually a big dramatic failure, is it?
Rarely. Standards almost never collapse in one dramatic, fiery moment. They erode quietly.
Like water on a rock.
Exactly. It's a gradual self-deception. You start arriving 5 minutes late instead of early. You stop correcting a small mistake because it seems survivable in the moment.
We cut one little corner.
And that one compromise becomes a pattern. The pattern becomes a norm. And suddenly that compromised norm is your new identity.
That is terrifying.
Seriousness is the ability to keep the promise after the emotion of the new beginning has completely cooled off.
That ties perfectly into Michael Jordan's mindset from the sources. He famously said, quote, I demand more from myself than anyone else could possibly expect. And he also said, you have to expect things of yourself before you can do them. The standard absolutely has to be internal first, otherwise you're just a puppet to whoever's demanding things from you.
If the pressure to perform is only coming from the outside, from your manager, your coach, your investors, it's borrowed pressure.
Borrowed pressure, I like that.
The strongest standard is the one no one has to impose on you. Deep preparation is actually a literal form of self-respect.
Self-respect. Not just discipline, but respect for yourself.
Yes. When you under-prepare, it's not just inefficient. It is a quiet, profound form of disrespect to the moment, to your own potential, and to everyone relying on you.
That completely flips how we define confidence.
Yeah.
We usually treat confidence like a mental trick.
Fake it till you make it.
Right. We tell people to fake it or stand in front of a mirror and shout affirmations.
Which rarely holds up under real pressure.
Exactly. But earned confidence has a totally different texture. It's grounded in remembered preparation.
You know you did the work.
Right. You are confident walking into a high-stakes environment because your nervous system literally remembers doing the brutal work when it was hard.
That's the core of it. Confidence is demand joined to preparation. You aren't desperately guessing if you can survive the pressure. Your body and mind know you can because you've proven your seriousness in private.
Repeatedly, when no one was watching.
Exactly.
So holding yourself to this severe standard in isolation is one thing. You're alone in the gym, alone at your desk. It's just you and your contract.
That's the easy part, comparatively.
Right. But what happens when your personal standard collides with someone else's ego in a team setting?
Oh, the dynamic completely changes.
You bring a group of highly ambitious, talented, deeply ego-driven people into the same room. You can't just enforce a personal contract anymore. You have to engineer a shared reality.
This is where things get really complicated.
And that brings us to the architecture of shared behavior.
This is where the philosophy has to scale. And it's where the insights of people like Dean Smith and Mike Krzyzewski, Coach K, become absolutely essential.
Two of the greatest leaders ever.
Absolutely. Individualistic cultures often fall for the trap of thinking that simply gathering talent makes you great.
Just put all the all-stars in one room and you'll win.
But it doesn't work. Talent only creates possibility. Behavior determines whether that possibility turns into trust and actual execution.
Behavior over talent.
And the crucial shift here in the source text is realizing that culture is not vocabulary. It is permission.
Man, I see this all the time in the corporate world. Everyone uses the exact same flattering vocabulary.
Oh, the buzzwords.
Every corporate retreat, every Startups About Us page has words like synergy, trust, innovation, and family painted on the wall.
And it usually means nothing.
Right. Because culture is actually built by what a group repeatedly permits, what it rewards, and crucially, what it excuses.
Exactly. Let's look at Dean Smith for a second. He provided what might be the ultimate moral test for any team culture. He said, "Good people are happy when something good happens to someone else."
Which sounds so lovely and warm, like something on a greeting card.
It does!
But when raw ambition enters the room, that is an incredibly demanding standard.
It's brutal.
Think about how hard it is to genuinely celebrate a coworker getting the promotion you wanted, to smile when your teammate gets the game-winning shot and all the media attention while you were benched.
Right.
Ego, status, spotlight, when those are on the line, being happy for someone else is agonizing.
It is the ultimate test of character because most people are generous when there is nothing at stake.
Oh, that's so true.
It's easy to be a team player as long as it doesn't cost you any spotlight. But what happens when you experience someone else's success as your own personal reduction?
You feel like you're losing when they win.
If a team cannot pass that test, if resentment simmers every time praise is distributed, the culture is quietly decaying, no matter what beautiful words are painted on the locker room wall.
And speaking of quiet decay, Coach K had this ironclad law about communication.
Yes, the silence rule.
He said effective teamwork begins and ends with communication. And the psychological reason behind this is fascinating. Human beings absolutely abhor a vacuum. We do not leave silence empty.
We can't tolerate it.
We just can't.
If a leader doesn't communicate clearly or if teammates stop talking to each other after a loss, we fill that silence. But what's fascinating here is what we fill it with.
Right, it's rarely anything good.
We fill it with assumptions. We fill it with paranoia, injured pride, and private stories about how we are being wronged.
A vague role definition just turns into toxic resentment.
Exactly.
It's exactly like rust in a machine. Silence in a team is oxidation.
That's a great analogy.
You don't see rust breaking an engine in real time. It happens at the microscopic level, in the dark.
Very slowly.
But one day, you try to turn the key, and the whole engine has completely seized up because that silent rust has fused everything together.
It's too late.
Right. You can't see silence destroying a team on a daily basis, but it absolutely will seize the engine.
That analogy hits the nail on the head. Communication isn't just a soft HR-mandated value. It is structural. It is the oil that prevents the rust. Coach K used the famous image of a fist. A team is like the 5 fingers on a hand. If they are scattered, doing their own thing, they are weak and easily broken.
Just a bunch of loose fingers.
But if communication and shared behavior bring them together, you have a fist. Scattered, brilliant talent is always weaker than aligned, communicative commitment.
Okay, so let me pose a difficult scenario for you because this is a breaking point for almost every organization.
All right, lay it on me.
What happens when the most talented person in the room, your superstar salesperson generating 40% of your revenue or your franchise player scoring all the points, is the one openly breaking the behavioral code?
The classic dilemma.
They are acting selfishly, skipping meetings, disrespecting staff, but they are producing massive results. What do you do?
That scenario is what the text calls the talent bargain, and it is one of the most destructive forces in any culture.
The talent bargain.
Yes. When leaders excuse poor behavior simply because of high production, they are making a devastating trade. They think they are being pragmatic.
Right. They think they're protecting the bottom line.
In the short term, sure, you might still get the revenue or the wins, but in the long term, you are teaching everyone else watching that the culture bends around the gifted.
It's like building a beautiful multi-million-dollar house on top of a toxic landfill.
That's exactly what it is.
The house looks incredible for a year, you're throwing great parties, but underneath, the toxic waste is eroding the foundation, the pipes are melting, and eventually the whole structure becomes uninhabitable.
The foundation just rots away.
When the rules don't apply to the star, the foundation is toxic.
Precisely. And once the rest of the team learns that lesson, trust is instantly destroyed.
Why try hard if the star doesn't have to?
Exactly. The highly disciplined, consistent people on the team begin to feel that their sacrifice is pointless. Why should they adhere to the grueling standard if the star gets a free pass?
So they start lowering their own effort.
The team rots from the inside while still looking strong on paper. This is why Coach K was so adamant about building a plural pronoun team.
Plural pronoun. No I or me.
Exactly. You have to discipline ambition so that it serves the collective. If the star can't use the plural pronoun, they have to go, regardless of their talent.
Man, that flows seamlessly into the harsh reality of leadership. Because if a group defines its behavior, but no one actually enforces it when the star player acts up or when things get hard, then the culture is just decorative.
It's suggestion.
Right. This brings us to the harshest, but arguably the most loving requirement of winning: enforcement, the price of credibility.
And this is where leaders like Vince Lombardi, Lou Holtz, and Bryant enter the framework in our text.
Some of the toughest coaches in history.
Bryant framed the reality of enforcement perfectly. He said, "It's not the will to win that matters. Everyone has that. It's the will to prepare to win that matters."
Everyone wants the trophy.
Exactly. Enforcement is about honoring the massive gap between just wanting a result and actually preparing for it.
So a code that isn't enforced isn't a code at all. It's just marketing material.
Exactly. And we have to acknowledge that enforcement feels incredibly harsh to undisciplined people
It feels like an attack.
because it interrupts their self-protection.
Yeah.
When a leader enforces a standard, they are forcing an individual to confront a reality they desperately want to avoid.
Which is what?
That your effort is not optional just because your emotion is low today. Your commitment isn't suspended just because you feel mildly inconvenienced.
Wow. Lou Holtz captured the reality of carrying that burden really well. He said, "It's not the load that breaks you down, it's the way you carry it." So what does this actually mean for how a culture handles pressure and accountability?
It means that a winning culture cannot let pressure disorganize its character. Holtz pointed out that you have to be governed by truth, not by the distortion of external feedback.
What does that look like in practice?
He said, "You're never as good as they say when you win, and you're never as bad as they say when you lose."
Oh, that's good.
If a culture is governed by flattery during a winning streak or panic during a losing streak, it loses its center. Enforcement is the mechanism that keeps the center anchored in objective truth.
Lombardi was famously blunt about this, too. He said, "The dictionary is the only place that success comes before work."
That's a classic for a reason.
I love that because it strips away all the mystical romanticizing of success. It's not magic, it's labor.
But that labor has to be guided by leadership that is willing to absorb the emotional cost of enforcement. Bryant had a profound rule of accountability that illustrates this.
What was the rule?
He said, "If anything goes bad, I did it. If anything goes semi-good, we did it. If anything goes really good, then you did it."
See, to me, that is the ultimate anti-ego statement. But how does a leader actually survive doing that? If you're always taking the blame, doesn't it crush you?
It requires immense psychological security, but it's not a sign of softness. It is a highly protective mechanism.
How so?
When a leader publicly absorbs the blame, they create a zone of psychological safety for the team. The team stops hiding their mistakes because they aren't terrified of being thrown under the bus.
So they take more calculated risks.
Yes, and it creates massive loyalty because enforcing the code requires the moral courage to create short-term tension. A leader has to be willing to disappoint people in the short term by correcting them, by confronting their poor effort in order to protect long-term trust.
Because if you try to be liked at the expense of being believed, your standard will collapse.
Precisely. Selective accountability, punishing the bench player but ignoring the star, destroys trust faster than losing ever could.
It's so heavy, but it makes perfect sense. It is so much easier in the moment to just look the other way to keep the peace.
But it's a fake peace.
Exactly. The peace you're keeping is actually a slow, systemic rot. So we have built this massive architecture now. We have the process grounding us, the standard pushing us, the shared behavior aligning us, and the enforcement protecting us.
The whole structure.
But if this entire heavy structure is fueled only by anger, or a massive ego, or this dark chip-on-the-shoulder desire to just dominate other people, it is eventually going to shatter under its own weight.
It's inevitable.
We need an anchor, which brings us to the deepest motivation: anchoring toughness in purpose.
This is where discipline has to transcend mere aggression. Tim Tebow's philosophy in the source material comes into focus here to illustrate that character and purpose are what actually stabilize the inner life.
Without purpose, toughness is just reactive. It's brittle.
Exactly.
Right. And here's a thought that really struck me from the deep dive. If your entire motivation, your whole reason for waking up at 4 a.m. and being tough, is just to prove the haters wrong or pure unadulterated ego, what happens when you actually win?
You lose your drive.
Yes. You vanquish the haters. You get the trophy. You get the bank account. What then? You completely run out of fuel. You have to go manufacture a new enemy just to find the motivation to get out of bed. It sounds exhausting.
It is exhausting, and it's completely unsustainable. That kind of drive is what the text calls vanity wrapped in discipline.
Vanity wrapped in discipline.
Wow. It looks impressive on the outside, but it requires constant emotional stimulation and perpetual drama to stay alive.
You always need someone to be mad at.
Right. It might help you survive a sudden burst of hardship, but it cannot build an enduring life. When you reach that inevitable place where your physical talent isn't enough anymore and your anger isn't enough, the deeper existential question surfaces.
Which is?
Why am I actually willing to live this way?
And purpose provides the answer. It changes the very meaning of the hardship.
Exactly. Tebow's perspective highlights that purpose does not make the pain go away. Having a why doesn't make waking up at 4 a.m. physically painless.
Your alarm still sounds terrible at 4 a.m.
Oh, always. It doesn't make the sacrifice easy. But what it does do is make the suffering intelligible. It gives it a shape.
The shape.
Yes. If your discipline is rooted in a desire to have a positive impact, to find meaning, to honor your family, or to master a craft you genuinely love suddenly, the delay of the reward and the sheer invisibility of the work doesn't destroy your identity.
You can weather the storm.
You can endure a tremendous amount of suffering when that suffering belongs to something worthy.
I really resonated with the concept of stewardship here. It's this idea that working relentlessly isn't just about trying to hoard achievements for your own ego to look at. It's about refusing to be ungrateful for the gifts and the abilities you've been given. It's a profound responsibility to honor the potential inside you.
Which brings the entire philosophy together into a complete circle. Character is not just some decorative moral bonus that looks nice in a press release.
It's not just PR.
No. Character is structurally load-bearing. Purpose ensures that the intense act of winning doesn't deform your humanity.
Because success is dangerous.
Very dangerous. It can inflate the ego. It can distort your perspective. It can loosen the very discipline that got you there.
It makes you soft.
Right. The ultimate goal isn't just to collect a pile of achievements. The goal is to become a person who can be trusted. Trusted with victory, trusted with failure, trusted with leadership, and trusted with influence.
Trusted with victory. That hits totally differently.
Well, it does.
Because we all think we want the victory immediately, but are we actually structurally prepared to carry the immense weight of it without losing who we are? That is the ultimate test.
That's the real question.
So let's get incredibly practical. How do you, listening to this right now, whether you're managing a team, trying to write a book, or just trying to get your health in order, how do you actually operationalize this massive, heavy philosophy tomorrow morning?
Where do we start?
The source material provides a highly practical daily blueprint, and we need to spend some real time breaking down the how and why of these daily habits. Let's dive into the 4 steps.
Step 1. Win the morning. The goal here is to prove your standards are stronger than your mood immediately upon waking.
This is so hard.
It is, but the psychology behind this is vital. The very first decision you make sets the neurological tone for the next 16 hours.
So if you hit snooze,
when the alarm goes off, if your first action is to negotiate, hit snooze, and choose comfort, you have signaled to your brain that your internal contract is flexible.
you've already lost.
Exactly. Winning the morning isn't about running a marathon before dawn. It's about executing one predetermined act of discipline, making the bed, drinking water, stepping outside without hesitation.
Just do it without thinking.
Right.
Step 2 is about removing self-negotiation. Decide once. Stop taking yourself to court every morning, relitigating the commitments you already decided to make.
The internal courtroom we talked about.
Exactly. I think about decision fatigue here. We only have so much cognitive bandwidth every day. If you spend 20 minutes agonizing over whether to go to the gym, you've drained the battery.
You're tired before you even work out?
Right. If you decide the night before, the gym isn't a choice anymore. It's just an event on the schedule. You bypass the ego's desire to negotiate.
That is precisely how you conserve willpower for the things that actually require complex thought. Step 3 is about vigilance. Correct small drift immediately. We talked earlier about how standards collapse quietly. This is the application of the broken windows theory to your personal habits.
Oh, explain that for the listener.
Sure. So if you leave one window broken in a building, it signals that no one cares, and soon all the windows are broken.
Right.
If you allow yourself to skip one minor detail in your process, it signals to your subconscious that the standard is dead.
Yeah.
You must catch the tiny compromises early, in the moment, before they solidify into your new identity.
It's so much easier to fix a tiny leak than to rebuild a flooded house.
Exactly.
And finally, step 4. End the day with the core question. Before you go to sleep, ask yourself, did I live today in a way that makes the person I want to become more believable?
That is powerful.
Wow. Just let that sit for a second. It's not, did I win today, or did people praise me today? It's about the believability of your future self.
It is the ultimate metric for a process-centered life. It forces you to look objectively at the concrete you poured that day and ask if it can hold the weight of your ambition.
So, let's trace the massive journey we've gone on today in this deep dive.
But we covered a lot of ground.
We did. We've seen how John Wooden's obsession with process shapes our daily unglamorous effort. How Kobe Bryant and Michael Jordan's internal standard gives that effort a severe, unyielding moral force. How Coach K and Dean Smith's shared behavior creates actual rust-free culture. How Bear Bryant and Vince Lombardi's enforcement protects that culture from the toxic talent bargain.
And finally,
how Tim Tebow's focus on purpose anchors the entire structure so it doesn't shatter under the weight of an empty ego.
which brings us to a final provocative thought based on the text.
All right, what is it?
If you take all of this to heart, if you build this immense private architecture, and you do eventually win publicly, that is when your greatest vulnerability arrives.
Wait, really?
Yes. The hardest test of these winning habits isn't actually failure. Failure sharpens us. The hardest test is success.
Success is the test.
When the crowd is cheering and the money is in the bank, will that praise soften your urgency? Will you let the victory loosen the exact discipline that got you there in the first place?
Oh, wow.
Winning, as we established at the very beginning, is a lagging indicator. Your job for the rest of your life is to make sure your private habits never, ever lag behind your public trophies.
Because long after that star has burned out in the dark, the light is still traveling. The unseen, grueling work you do in private today is the light the world will finally see years from now. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Keep building the habits, keep honoring the process, and we will catch you next time.